Hi everyone, welcome to Freakish Tales channel. Our aim is to delivering most haunted stories, so just subscribe our channel and join our community. I just recently moved to Oklahoma. Recently, I keep having very uncomfortable experiences outside, especially in the evening or nighttime. It started when I went to go put laundry in the wash one day. We have a laundry room attached to our building, and it was broad daylight, so I wasn't exactly feeling nervous about anything. I got about 20 feet from the walkway alley way to the washroom, and I smelled the worst rotting animal smell I've ever smelled in my life. Not only that, as soon as I smelled it, I got the strongest flight or fight reaction I've ever felt. I ran back to my unit, locked the door, and had a small anxiety attack. I waited about 15 to 20 minutes before going back out, and when I did, there was no smell, and I felt normal. Fast forward about a week later, my husband and I were outside at about 1 a.m., smoking a cigarette when we heard what sounded like a dying dog. We live right off of a major interstate, so we assumed an animal must have been hit. We started walking towards the direction of this noise, sort of a wheezing whine, a terribly sad noise, when we got to the edge of our parking lot. As we got onto the pavement, the wheezing dog noise turned into what sounded like an owl hooting. I understand owls make strange noises. I was raised in Texas. I've heard many. But this was not an owl. The longer we listened to it, the more it sounded like a person trying to mimic an owl. My husband called out, "Hey, is someone there?" pretty loudly, and just silence was the response. We stood quiet a few moments before the owl noise completely stopped, and the sound of an unnatural laugh echoed from the trees. The only way I can describe this noise is it was like when a deaf person laughs, like they can't hear how they sound, so it just kinda sounds a bit off. I don't mean to sound rude at all, truly. That's just the only way I know how to describe it. It felt like ice water was in my veins as soon as I heard it. Both of us just felt extreme fear in that moment and ran back to the house. I could explain off all of these things if I hadn't seen what I had seen next. A few days later, I was outside smoking around 7 p.m., and I saw two men walking on the side of the street where I had heard the noise a few nights prior. They walked past the trees a little ways, but then stopped. It was dusk, so light was low. One of them turned on their phone light and shined it into the trees before jumping back. Both men took off at a full sprint away from the tree line. I have no idea what they saw. I didn't hear anything, but there was pure fear there. The most frustrating part was I was looking right at them and saw absolutely nothing. Fast forward about a week later, I get a text while I'm at work from my husband telling me he heard our daughter talking and laughing in the field across the street. He was 100% sure it was her until he realized she was inside in her room. He said it sounded just like her. Fast forward again a few days later, I found dried blood on my door jamb, as well as scratches near my doorknob, and more dried blood at the bottom of my door. My neighbor had their internet cables cut and told me that someone had tried to open their door the night it happened and then slammed their body against the door trying to break in. My neighbor said he forced himself out the door ready to confront whoever was there. But there was no one. We constantly hear things on the roof, things in the alley behind our place. Our dog will run to the door at random hours and sniff and growl like someone is there. I have probably made a mistake by calling out to this thing, whistling at night, trying to antagonize it because I desperately want a recording. I have one recording of its noises. It sounds like an owl, but towards the end there's this low, inexplicable moan that comes from the same place the owl sounds are coming from. It's hard to hear and ends very abruptly. I don't feel like this is good enough. No one believes me, but something is out there. It knows I know it. I feel it watching me. If I curse at it or try and lure it out, it goes completely silent or does that horrible laugh. I can never seem to catch the laugh or any of the noises. As soon as I hit record, it usually stops. I don't know how to explain this, but I know I'm not crazy. Please, if someone can help me, I really want to know what this thing is. I have pictures of the blood on my door, the scratches, and the video of the owl sounds, moan. I just feel like no one will take this seriously. It always smells like a corpse when it's around. That's the biggest sign something isn't right. I brought it up to one of my native co-workers, and he said, "Leave it be. Wash the blood from your door and stop trying to talk to it." He wouldn't tell me anything else. I don't know if this is a Wendigo, a skinwalker, or something else entirely, but I have never felt such dread and fear as I do when I hear or smell it out there. Please, if someone can help me, I really want to know what this thing is. I have pictures of the blood on my door, the scratches, and the video of the owl sounds moan. I just feel like no one will take this seriously. It always smells like a corpse when it's around. That's the biggest sign something isn't right. I brought it up to one of my native co-workers, and he said, "Leave it be. Wash the blood from your door and stop trying to talk to it." He wouldn't tell me anything else. I don't know if this is a Wendigo, a skinwalker, or something else entirely, but I have never felt such dread and fear as I do when I hear or smell it out there. Please, someone, anyone, if you know what this is, please tell me I'm not losing my mind, and if it's real, how do I make it go away? This thing is causing me so much stress. Thank you for reading. This happened years ago, but still gives me chills when I think about it or tell it. My pawpaw Doug died in January of '98, and my little brother was born in December of '98. They've never known each other. My family lived on some land owned by Pawpaw. In fact, all his children did. 3 houses side by side, walking distance to each other. Starting with our house, it was his middle child, my dad, in a newly built modular home, the middle house where my Pawpaw and Nana lived and raised their children, given later to his youngest daughter and her family. The last house is where his oldest daughter lived with her family. We were all somewhat tight-knit growing up. Around the summer of '99, during a family BBQ and bonfire, ghost stories started being told for us kids. I hear my mom say to my aunts that she needed to speak with them during this time. They go inside to get more marshmallows, and I followed, saying I had to use the bathroom. I didn't. I was just nosy, LOL. I sit in there with the door cracked, and I heard my mom asking them questions about my pawpaw, like what kind of cologne he wore, and did he have a distinct stance and posture, and would he have liked my little brother if they had met. They answered her questions, and I could tell something was off with my mom afterwards. A few days later, on the way home from an outing with Mom, I asked her why she was questioning my aunts over the weekend. Her answer legit scared me a kid, but also kick-started my love of the paranormal. She said that at least once a week, the toilet in my parents' bathroom would flush on its own, and when she would go check, obviously no one is there, but she'd smell cigarette smoke and manly cologne. My pawpaw Doug died of lung cancer from smoking. The lights would even flip on and off by themselves in the bathroom. She proceeds to tell me that occasionally she'd wake up, and my little brother would be in his crib laughing, and she'd see this shadow figure standing and hunched over his crib. It never scared her. She said it was almost a calming presence. Fast forward a couple years later, and my mom is driving me and my siblings to the park for a family fun day. On the way there, off to the right is this massive cemetery where my pawpaw is buried. As we are passing by it, my little brother, who is in the back seat, starts laughing and waving towards the cemetery. I asked him what he is doing, and his reply stopped us all in the middle of our convos. Keep in mind, he never once met our grandfather or even knew his name other than Pawpaw. He said that's where Pawpaw Doug sleeps. We asked him, "How do you know that?" And "How did you know his name?" And my brother replies, "Because he would play with me in my crib when I was a baby. He told me his name was Doug, like my daddy and my brother. Now my dad goes by DC and I go by my nickname Trey. Not once during this time did my brother know ever our real name. He only knew Daddy and Trey." Talk about chills running down my spine. Every time we passed that cemetery, my brother would smile and wave and say, "Hey, Pawpaw Doug." Every word of this is totally true. It's one of many paranormal things I have experienced. I have plenty of stories I can share, and I probably will at some point. Not a forest or park ranger, but I hunt. When I say I hunt, I don't mean I sit in a tree stand. I mean I'm the guy out hunting by walking over the entire park with enough on my back to let me sleep at night, sort of comfortably, but little enough I won't mind dragging 150 pounds of yummy out of the woods. All right, so I'm hunting a fairly large forest somewhere in the northeast corridor of the US. It's not uncommon to run into other people at the edges of the woods. It's fairly uncommon to run into people in the middle of the woods, even during hunting season. Unless you're on the trails, which I wasn't. And it's decently common to run into the ruins of buildings from the 1800s. I happened to be hunting a new valley I was pretty sure had a crossing in it. So, to set the view, I'm sitting on the top of a very steep shale slide, looking down into a valley with a creek running through it. Approaching this plateau, there's a knife edge that runs up and down the ridge, but there's really no way to get up to this spot except for the seriously determined, the drunk, and the foolish, without walking up or down the edge. Getting up here creates quite a noise from the stones sliding on the stones, which means I know I need to sit up here for an hour to let things settle back down after I made the ascent. Since it's such a pain in the ass, I left my day pack at the bottom under a pine tree and only had a rifle, binoculars, water, and an energy bar. I'm up here for about 3 hours glassing this little piss of a stream, looking for something to cross it, and seeing nothing but squirrels and birds. And I finally decide to start glassing the opposite hill out of sheer boredom. I am 90% sure I chose a poor spot and wasted an afternoon looking at nothing. Such is hunting, it's got really interesting days, and it's got really boring days. And this is why it's called hunting and not shooting. As I'm screwing around with the focus on the binoculars, I catch a glimpse of something which almost looks like a person if they were wearing dark blue clothes and about 4 feet tall. 99% of the time, the day hikers just pass by without realizing I'm here, even with the blaze orange requirements. Or they pretend to ignore me. But you'd be amazed how many times someone has almost walked through my stand. Anyway, this person wasn't moving, which started to make me think I was wrong. It was just standing there behind the cover of some low scrub brush and tree branches, and I would have missed it were it not for the color. I zoom out a bit and realize I'm not looking at a person, but it's actually a collapsed cabin, and I was looking at where the door would be. Except it really looked like a person, and cabins aren't blue. I move the zoom back onto the door and play with the focus for about 5 minutes, and I can't get the person to come back. In fact, the cabin door now has some light from the setting sun visible through the holes in the walls and roof. Whatever 4 feet tall thing I was looking at has moved. Sigh. Teenagers, right? I have that thought and then realize something else. I still can hear birds and squirrels and all the other things in the woods which typically go quiet when they notice something, which means that they didn't notice me, but that also means they didn't notice whatever was in the cabin door a short time ago. I'm doing my best to stay quiet and not move, and whatever it was certainly did move. I would expect everything in the woods to have gone for cover with a teenager crashing through the brush, but the noises almost made it worse. There was stuff moving in the brush. The problem was, stuff was moving around in the brush. I started to think it was a trick of the light since the sun was setting, and it was getting to the part of the day when tree stumps looked like deer. I knew I would have to move soon and figured I might as well pack it up, since I still had to get down off the shale and back to the pine tree where I had planned to throw a tarp and sleep. At this time, I realized it wasn't dark per se, but it was overcast now. Again, the creepy experience isn't that there's something obviously wrong. It's that everything is so completely normal for what I would expect were I alone. About this time, a fog rolled into the valley, which the combination of overcast weather conditions, sunset, and a ground fog coming up in the wet, low valley had signaled it was time to leave. I checked my safety, put the caps on my glass, and reached up to take down my orange flag. The moment I grabbed the flag, the dread came. That's the only way to describe it. The woods went from animals going home to sleep to full-on, you're fucked. The movement had attracted what I could only describe as 1,000 invisible eyes, which all turned in unison as they noticed me. Even wonder what a deer feels in the headlights. This is it. Then I heard children. I heard children laughing. Not teenagers, not adults, not women, but full-on 5-year-old kids laughing like they caught a firefly. I had hiked in 5 miles the previous day through woods and put down 2 more today when I woke up to get to this spot, and I distinctly hear children laughing during what I could only describe as the most creepy moment I've ever had in a valley I know is completely unoccupied, having stared at it for the last 4 hours or so. I am pretty sure my feet only touched the shale 3 times getting down from the knife edge, and I made a ton of noises doing it too. At at this point, I didn't really care. I grabbed the pack and my flashlight and absolutely full-on fucking rucked it to the next hilltop. I killed my light halfway up the hill and then went to the top of the hill, where I threw down the tarp and unrolled my phone. And there I sat all night watching the hill I just came from.
Would you dare enter a school where children vanished and a mad teacher was never found? 5 friends thought it was just a legend until they stepped inside and the doors locked behind them. What they found in the basement still haunts them to this day. The haunted school of Blackwood. In a quiet village called Blackwood, there was an old school that had been closed for many years. The building stood alone at the edge of the forest. Windows were broken, paint peeled off the walls, and rusted swings creaked in the wind. People said the school was haunted. No one dared to go near it, especially at night. But one day, 5 friends, Arjun, Meena, Ravi, Tanya, and Samir, decided to explore the school. They had heard many stories about it, and being brave teenagers, they wanted to prove the rumors were fake. "Let's go tonight," Arjun said. "We'll record everything on my phone. If we see a ghost, we'll have proof." Everyone agreed. They packed flashlights, snacks, and a camera. At 10 p.m., they met outside the school gate. The air was cold, and the night was silent except for the occasional hoot of an owl. The gate creaked loudly as they pushed it open. The path was covered with dry leaves. Their footsteps echoed as they entered the building. Inside, the school smelled of dust and decay. Cobwebs hung from the ceiling. Lockers stood open, and old books lay scattered on the floor. "Let's go to the basement," Ravi said. "That's where the real horror happened, remember?" Yes, the basement. According to legend, 30 years ago, a teacher named Miss Alina had gone mad. She locked students in the basement, saying she was protecting them from demons. But no one ever came out. When the police arrived, she was gone, and the school shut down forever. They found the basement door at the end of a long hallway. It was locked with a rusty chain. Meena spotted an old crowbar nearby. Arjun used it to break the lock. The door creaked open, revealing stairs that led into darkness. As they stepped down, the air grew colder. Their flashlights flickered. The basement smelled worse than the rest of the school, like wet soil and something rotten. Suddenly, Tanya screamed, "What is it?" Samir asked, rushing to her. "There was a face in the wall," she stammered. Everyone pointed their lights at the spot. There was nothing there. "Maybe it was just your shadow," Ravi said, trying to calm her. They moved deeper into the basement. The walls were covered in strange drawings, symbols, circles, and stick figures with crosses over their eyes. In the corner, they found a small door, almost hidden behind shelves. It looked recently used. "I don't like this," Meena whispered. "We've come this far," said Arjun. "Let's check it out." He opened the door slowly. Inside was a tiny room with a single desk and chair. On the desk was an old book, bound in black leather. Arjun opened it. Suddenly the lights went out. Everyone screamed. "Turn on your flashlights," Ravi shouted, but the flashlights wouldn't work. The phones died. The air grew heavy. Then they heard it, the sound of children laughing, soft, broken laughter, and footsteps. "Run!" Meena yelled. They tried to rush back up the stairs, but the door slammed shut before they could reach it. They were trapped. Then a voice echoed through the basement, a soft, female voice. "Class is not over yet." It was Miss Alina. A figure stepped from the shadows. A woman in a torn black dress, her hair hanging over her face, blood dripping from her hands. "You're all late to class," she hissed. She raised her hands, and ghostly children appeared behind her, pale, with hollow eyes. They walked toward the group, whispering strange words. Samir fainted. Tanya cried. Mina clutched Ravi's arm. "Please, let us go," Arjun begged. Miss Alina stared at him. "No one ever leaves. You belong to the school now." Just then, Mina remembered something. She had a small silver cross in her bag. Her grandmother had given it to her for protection. She pulled it out and held it high. The ghostly children stopped. Miss Alina screamed and shrank back. The cross glowed bright. "Keep going," Ravi shouted. They pushed the ghost children aside and ran toward the door. The cross burned through the darkness like a torch. The basement door flung open. Light poured in. They climbed the stairs, dragging Samir with them. As they reached the main hallway, the school started shaking. Walls cracked. The floor split. The 5 friends ran out just as the entire building collapsed into dust. They never spoke of that night again. The school was gone, but sometimes at night, people still hear children laughing near the edge of the forest, and if you ever go there, don't forget your cross. Moral: some stories are not just stories, and some places are not meant to be explored. If you enjoyed this creepy tale and want more horror stories like this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for spine-chilling content every week. Hit the bell icon so you never miss a scare.
If you are bold enough, then I challenge you to watch my videos in my playlist that definitely make you cry and horrific act, and be ready. Watch at your own risk.